This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stockbox interview.
Joining us today is Dan G, the CEO of Priority AI, after the board of Alteration Earth PLC entered into a non-binding heads of terms to acquire the entire issued share capital of Priority AI. So we'll be completing the RTO. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Dan, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's very good to be talking to you. It's the first time, of course, we're talking on Stockbox. I know a fair bit's been happening in the background, as always, with these cases with RTOs. They can be quite a lengthy process. But can we just talk a little bit, get a bit of an introduction into Priority AI, what you're all about, really? If you can kind of give the elevator pitch in sort of 60 seconds, that would be a good start.
The elevator pitch, it's been a long kind of journey and story. So, maybe not elevator, maybe flight of stairs, but we are a platform-based solution, so a software as a service technology company. We help small businesses, both publicly and privately, access advisory growth services to help them grow their business. So those growth services might be anything. So we offer those SMEs a toolbox of growth solutions, anything from corporate governance, social media creation, investor relations, all the way through to their capital market strategy, partnerships and sponsorships. So stuff that a small business owner or a large business owner would usually go to a retained advisor, lock into a lengthy contract, have a big kind of cash obligation, maybe several £1,000s per month, which is quite constrictive to the business. So we offer that as a platform-based solution, one price point, accessible, affordable.
Okay, well, that sums it up quite well. I want to dive a little bit more into that. I think the scope is probably quite broad from what reading the comment in the RNS there, where you're talking about improving business efficiency through targeting SMEs with service and governance, financing, brand management, and marketing through custom AI bots. So, I mean, the scope seems pretty wide here, doesn't it? I mean, I guess it's as big as your imagination. Is that right? Or do you have certain sort of bots that you would say your flagship product?
The technology works in two different forms. So actually, you're right, the sky is the limit. And when we think, my background's kind of running kind of growth businesses, but also in that professional advisory space, I've been paid to do kind of all those functions, non-exec directing, running agencies, raising capital. So we've got a good kind of grasp, and my co-founder James has been in that space for 15 years as well. But the way the technology works is actually in two instances. So the first part is a custom language model. So we build narrow language models. What that looks like, your traditional LLM. So think of the things that everyone's familiar with in the press and news, your Bards, your Geminis, ChatGPTs, sit 1.7, 1.8 trillion parameters. Our language models sit in several million parameters, so a significant reduced amount of processing query, but they're built custom for a business. So we go out, what that may look like is maybe for an AIM customer, a PLC, we might ingest all of their research, all their RNSs, their trade history, their prospectus. If they're a mining company, maybe CPRs and assays. So we build a queryable data set specifically for that customer. So we reduce the chance of hallucinations, and we create context for a model, which we then give to that customer. So that's the first part. We give the customer the model, they can go deploy it in their community. And that might be anywhere their stakeholders are. Maybe it's on the bulletin boards, maybe it's on social media, maybe it's on their website. That garners information about what people are interested in, drilling into kind of the topics. And then the second part is our platform-based solution, which actually interlocks with that narrow language model. And that is a process-driven platform. What it looks like, the easiest way to explain, is a big menu of services that most growth companies will be familiar with. Things like, how do I make a social media post, or how do I write a press release? How do I construct a regulatory news piece? How do I partner with another business? And the ability to click a button and get those instant results rather than using retained advisor. So it's all 5 clicks or less. The ability to produce process-driven but contextual outputs for a business, specifically for a business, which are relatively predictable and safe to use.
Okay, and you say these are custom. So is it custom per client? Is that how you're operating?
So yeah, unlike traditional SaaS businesses which charge per seat, we don't do that. We actually charge per model. So we go out and we build models per customer. We have different tierings of build. A basic build will take a form where we can actually do it programmatically. So it will take us on average 3 to 5 minutes to go out and construct a basic build for a customer. That might be maybe a simple private company, maybe kind of short incorporation, might be kind of their pitch deck, their business plan, a little bit about their community and product, all the way up to more complicated builds. The most complicated we've done is about 200 million parameters. So relatively lengthy public company, 6 years trading history, natural resources. So lots of CPRs, lots of assays, prospectus, incorporation docs, lots of presentations and research, building all that into a model for 6 or 7 years. That takes a little bit more work. That took around 2 hours to construct.
Right. Okay. So, and you've effectively got two.
Seems relatively small.
Yeah. I know, but so you've got two effectively arms, if you like, to the business. You've got the custom language model. If we can think of that maybe as the external part of it, so that would be, as you say, an example. People, investors in companies, for example, might want to query certain RNSs or query a technical report or an annual report. They can interact with that, or they can get a sense of what the general investor appetite is. It can maybe collate things from bulletin boards, et cetera, et cetera. So that's like an external use for that. And then the platform-based solutions, would you say it's more of an internal thing for the company to replace retained advisors on things like social media posts, marketing strategies, that kind of thing? Is that a good way to kind of think about it?
Yeah, that's a perfect way to look at it. And the way, from a technical point of view, what we'd say is that Priority Advisor, the language model, is iterative. It's ingesting information that already exists and querying that. And the platform is generative. It's creating something new. A more simple way to kind of put it was kind of like a GP. The advisor is out there diagnosing the issue. The platform is there to give you the tools to fix it.
Right.
Ultimately, as a small business owner running small businesses, you're so busy running the business and your priority is changing every day. Obviously, the company name, your priority does pivot as a small business owner, you know yourself. It's very hard to actually understand what the key kind of pain points are day to day. The best people to understand that are your stakeholders, the people that buy your product, the people that work for your company, the people that follow your socials, all got opinions, all having conversations. So in effect, that advisor is a social listening product to help you diagnose the issue. The platform's there to fix it.
Okay. And in terms of clients then, Dan, how many clients can you say how many clients you currently have that you're working with?
So we've been in build now for knocking on 2 years, so about 20 months. This kind of been built up for the platform. The intention alongside, we were going to do an Aquis IPO until recently, as you say, with the RNS from Alteration Earth. The intention was to build demand, to be able to go to market, raise some capital to have a go-to-market strategy. So we ran a waiting list process. We closed that waiting list process around February this year, about 650 customers. So in terms of kind of the metrics of the business, operationally, we break even around 50 customers. So 650 odd is relatively robust. However, through the last 3 or 4 months, as we've gone out, spoke to investors, that waiting list has grown significantly with agencies inquiring about using our platform to service their customers, small business owners, some of our investment community that have kind of helped us along the way, supporting us, have all shown a kind of an appetite to use the platform. So we're in excess of that number. And the intention is to kind of go to market alongside this transaction and bring some of those customers on platform relatively swiftly.
Right. So 650 on a waiting list, and you're sort of waiting to push the button post RTO. And that's when you really get the ball rolling with actually working and doing deals with these waiting list customers.
I think we can kind of touch on, I guess, transaction there and RTO and kind of logic of, from our point of view and from Alteration Earth's point of view of why we're here. As I said, we're originally coming to Aquis via RPO. The intention was to raise our RPO capital, to use that capital to build out that go-to-market team and strategy and kind of bring the product to market. The valuation kind of driver behind staying private for a slightly shorter period and then moving to AIM as a more mature market was that actually we can get the product in people's hands a lot quicker. So alongside the RTO, we have arranged a financing package, which we're actually closing at the moment, which gives us the ability to increase the team size. Glad to say we've actually increased the team size significantly already and go to market a lot sooner than expected. So we're expecting to put product in people's hands pre RTO. So we will be coming to market with customers, revenue, and kind of proof of concept and an active kind of community of users on platform.
Okay, so have customers pre-RTO. And do you have a date for RTO or an anticipated date?
I think the Nomad would lock me in a cupboard and throw away the key if I gave you that. However, we are targeting before the end of the year to be on exchange, regulatory kind of approvals, permissioning, fundraise, etc. Lots of variables, but the target is to kind of swiftly move. The great point about us as a transaction is that we were almost over the line with an Aquis IPO, so a lot of our kind of DD and documentation is fresh and done. So in terms of kind of Alteration Earth, we've done a lot of the legwork. So we're just appointing advisors. We've just appointed kind of Nomad for the transaction, legals, accountants. So that's all underway. Teams building out. So at the moment, about a week in, we're ahead of schedule. Anything can happen, I guess, between now and list day.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And any idea on how much you want to raise, an ideal number of what you'd like to be targeting?
Internal conversations, and I guess this kind of demand push in terms of kind of what we're doing. I think the realistic number is the transaction is 12.5 million, which values Priority AI at 10 and Alteration Earth at 2.5. We have to be, I guess, cognizant of that in terms of how much we raise. In terms of our kind of working capital requirements, we've self-funded the business up until January this year. Between the founders, we've raised some capital privately. We're relatively well funded at the moment. There is not a huge requirement to raise capital at IPO. However, we do want people involved in the transaction. I'm still one of the largest shareholders. I'll be participating at IPO because I think it's cheap ultimately. But we don't want to be too dilutive to the story as we are now, especially looking at valuation comparables. 10 million with a revenue producing proven SaaS platform in the AI space. I think it's relatively cheap. So 1 to 2 million, I think, will probably be where we will kind of max out in terms of what we'd like to take as a company. If demand outstrips that, I think we probably look to do future capital rounds rather than an IPO. We don't want to raise too much. And as a shareholder, I don't want to dilute down at these levels ultimately.
Okay, sure. And if anyone wants to take part in that, what's the best way for them to get involved?
Our current broker, Tavira Financial, speak to Tavira, reach out to kind of press and IR, Kamarko, our press team. So IR at priority.com, I believe. However, lots of advisors on now, broker, IR team. We're doing lots of press and media over the next kind of 2 or 3 months. So probably see the brand out and about there quite a lot. Always going to have contact details. So we won't be hard to find. And we're just moving into a kind of new HQ as well. So in the city of London, so people can kind of knock on the door and stop by for a coffee.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, it certainly sounds like things are starting to move on. Just if I can ask a final question, just in terms of the sort of the business plan, the business model, do you have that set already in terms of what you charge? Is it for development or is it licensing per year? Any idea on the sort of, if you can explain the business model, the charging model?
So one of the key value drivers when we set the business up was to create an affordable solution. Both James and I as founders had used advisory growth services across a whole broad spectrum, and we've been advisory kind of growth providers. And the cost is very restrictive, especially as a small business. When you're starting up, paying several £1,000s a month or locking into a yearly contract becomes pretty scary, especially kind of when you're looking at your cash flows. So we actually run as a pure play SaaS model. So £499 a month is in effect platform build out. So we give you a language model. It gives you monthly access to the platform. It's 30-day rolling. Obviously, we're called Priority because people's priorities change, and we want to give business owners the best chance of having that flexibility to go, do you know what? It's not working for me now. I want to roll out and I want to roll back in again. We're relatively confident that we will have a sub-industry standard churn because of the models, because we give that user the first-party data and the ability to process that. But it's all about flexibility. It's very much a user-driven product. We want people to feel comfortable using the platform, that they've got the flexibility and the ability to kind of pivot as their business hopefully grows, which is what we're here to do.
Okay, good stuff. And aside from all the admin that's got to go on with the RTO, what will be the focus of you and the team for the business side of it, sort of in these next 6 months, really? I know you want to have some customers signed on before you RTO.
From my perspective, I guess the kind of benefit of the transaction is that I get a lot more time to focus on the business side. Alteration Earth coming in, running that AIM RTO process, kind of taking the reins away from James and I, which is fantastic. We already have built out the team. So we've got 2 or 3 kind of significant hires, which we've made already. We intend to make another 4 to 5 to build out the team, 12 to 15 to kind of run the IPO. We've identified our first customers that we'll be bringing on platform from that 600-ish. So I guess, and we've got some milestones that we've agreed with kind of Alteration Earth where we'd like to be prior to the RTO. And I guess from my perspective, beating those milestones quite significantly and aggressively prior to RTO is kind of the only key focus. That's my day job now, is going out and delivering results. And they'll be reflected in the valuation at IPO. 10 million is our floor. The more kind of aggressive we are on customer acquisition, the more that will ratchet.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you very much for introducing Priority AI to us today, Dan. So I'm looking forward to following this story as you head down the RTO route and seeing how successful you are in building out on your aggressive strategy here. But thank you for your time for the moment, Danji, the CEO of Priority AI.
Thanks, Mark. Have a great day.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.